What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eickman. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homegrown Hustle. I'm the host, Matt Eickman. I'm here with the founder of eWealth Partners. eWealth Partners? I'm going to let that one try. I'm going to try that again. Cut. It's the only time I'm going to cut. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Homegrown Hustle. I'm here with Brian Adamek from eWealth Partners out of Minnetonka. I founded it about 15 years ago. Works on the finance side with primarily entrepreneurs, understanding where to direct their funds to get the most out of it, short-term, long-term, all the different dollar things. So I'm super excited to have you here, Brian. Thanks for joining us in the studio. Also, father of 6, so got a little bit going on the home front and another one on the way.
That one's coming in July.
All right. Congrats, man.
Thanks.
We don't have to get into if you're having a boy or a girl.
We don't. They've all been surprises.
Dude, same.
And we're 3-3 right now, so this will be the tiebreaker.
Well, Brian, thanks again for joining us. Could you kind of tell the audience a little bit about yourself and about eWealth Partners?
Sure. On the business front, so I started the company in 2011. I was with another financial planning firm and then kind of got the itch and it made sense just to start my own thing. And I started it, one of those from nothing, didn't have any clients, didn't have a team, but I knew always that I wanted to own my own business. And so why I loved the whole wealth management, financial planning side of it is it kind of allows me to do two things that I really enjoy. One is just being a business owner, entrepreneur. And then also I just love anything, everything growing your wealth and just what's the most effective ways and optimization, to do that. So started that in 2011 and then kind of just grew slowly in the sense of had a part-time assistant that became full-time, then added another associate. And really when I first started the practice, my dad had a tax prep practice. So we had separate entities, but I branded my company very similar to his because those earlier clients were coming from the tax side of it.
Okay.
And so even though we were separate entities, that's what made sense. And that's quite honestly how I survived in those earlier years. And then those earlier years I was single and not married and no kids. But like in financial planning, wealth management, it's hard to grow. Like those first 5 years especially are very, at least for me, low income years. And so what was easier to build is the tax prep side of it. And so I was, the core business was the financial planning, wealth management, but how I survived financially was through the tax prep side. So I just started crushing tax returns. And so did that for many years and then got to a point, and this could be, the whole episode, which we don't want to, go that far into detail today, but like I actually wanted to separate a bit from my dad's tax practice and essentially rebrand the name. This was just 3 years ago to eWealth Partners because there was a couple things. One is I wanted to focus more on the core of the financial planning wealth management piece. And two, at that time, I didn't know if I wanted to continue with the tax prep practice piece of it. And so, fast forward, we're actually going to bring on tax prep again this next tax season. But it was in doing so, separated offices and kind of really had our core focus on the financial planning wealth management and even went hyper concentrated on focusing on business owners and entrepreneurs. And so that's where I said we really niched into that's who our target market is. And it's just kind of the two things that I probably most passionate about in the business sense is I love ways to optimize wealth. And then I just love being an entrepreneur. And so the work that we do, you get to see that, you get to hear the stories of, the business owners, entrepreneurs that you help of like, how'd you start this?
Yeah.
Or like, and that's like super cool. So today we're a team of 6. We're probably going to hire another 2 to 3 in the next 6 to 9 months.
Heck yeah.
Brought on a business partner, John, last year, which has been awesome. And so that's kind of the vision is we want to continue growing. I want to have more business partners, which I know is not always the case. And, we're in the professional service. So my take is that if you don't make that top talents, you don't give them an avenue towards ownership, they're gonna leave and go elsewhere. And so I strongly believe in like, I want to retain that top talent. I want to give them an opportunity for ownership. And that's where we're at today. And so if you come in as an associate advisor, there's an avenue towards that. And we know that, okay, our target is business owners that has that business ownership complexity, which we can talk about kind of what the planning looks like, but that's probably a decent background as far as.
That was awesome. I can go a lot of directions with that. So you talked about building wealth. So when you think about doing that as an entrepreneur, how do you think about it? And like, what's the knowledge gap that people are coming to you with? Where are they coming from?
Yeah. So how do I think about it and what's the knowledge gap?
Yeah.
One, I think most business owners, almost from the earliest stage to more developed, they know that the business is their most valuable asset. On the early end, it may not have any value, but it's what's going to produce their income. And then at the latter end, it's because likely, their biggest asset is just the enterprise value of their business. And so they know like, okay, even if it doesn't have value, but it's going to create the income for us to survive. Right. And then like, hey, now we're getting processes in place. Yeah. And so like, there's not necessarily a knowledge gap. I think a lot of them know like, hey, we need to pour into this business to grow our income, to grow the value. And then when they finally get their income to a point where there's some excess income, then often that's when they start kind of reconsidering like, oh, should I be what about all this other stuff, the tax planning, then the estate planning, how we have excess cash, the investment that quite honestly, we've just neglected for this period of time because we've just poured all our money and our time into the business. Now we have potentially likely freed up some cash flow and then also freed up some time to think about that. And so there's a knowledge gap, but it's more of like, it's an intentional knowledge gap. Like we can't pay attention to anything else type of thing. It's something that we've talked about before is like, but oftentimes the business owner, entrepreneur you're working with, they have a spouse and they might have oftentimes, usually I always say the vision is very similar between the two spouses, but the priorities and the concerns in the short term are very, very different. And so that's where sometimes there can be some like these pain points of like, how do you, we're the business, like, no, we're just going to keep on building this. And the other spouse that's not in the business might say, I believe in this, but also what about, our kids' education? What about like, hey, we want to, build onto the house or like all this other stuff, or we should save for retirement type of thing. And so I think that's something that we've heard from feedback from our clients is that we do a good job, as silly as it sounds, is listening to both spouses and giving room for that non-business owner spouse to talk about their concerns and their priorities and their vision as well, which I think is like, shouldn't we all be doing this? But sometimes, from other experiences from my clients, like they would just talk to the business owner and not, I'll say show any respect to the other spouse, which is bogus because we've talked before, like our spouses and what they're doing, right? Not in the business, my spouse, but like she hears everything about my business, right? Like she's like my number one, right? And so to not give them the space to kind of, and talk to them directly is just something that, I mean, we're intentional about, but it's just like, I think it's basic stuff that I guess is a little bit unique in our world.
But I mean, when you're talking about finance, like that becomes emotional really quick for people. Yeah. And with business owners, especially, those emotions drive a lot of those financial decisions, which might be one of the hurdles you really have to overcome.
Yeah.
Like you become a therapist at times.
Very much so. There's a lot of that, which is, I mean, I'm very honored actually to be put in a position where you have some real talk right right in front of you, and it's really cool to see that, right? And you're just asking questions like, tell me what that looks like. And so that's a really cool place to be, is just to allow for that space. And what I'll say to that is, like, when we hear those, call them priorities, concerns from that other spouse, we could address those, and that may help even strengthen the long-term vision of the couple, right? To say, I get that you're concerned with maybe the liquidity or how we're going to fund this or do what that is. Let's cover that, because now we believe in this long-term, future. And so, like, I say we can just get them aligned faster, because they oftentimes believe what the business owner spouse is long-term. Right. But there's just some things that may not be a concern of ours as business owners, but it is real on that spouse. And so just addressing that, coming up with a plan to say, all right, we've tackled this. Now let's run with kind of the long-term piece of it. So it's real super interesting.
But I think that dynamic of, especially businesses where both spouses aren't involved in the business, sometimes my wife wants to hear about what I got going on, but not all the time. No. So the level of involvement in the finances, sometimes those decisions just happen. But at the end of the day, the money's supposed to be coming in, and we put all this effort into the entrepreneurship and the building of this business for the family, right? So the fact that as we're focusing on building the business, that like falls to the wayside and isn't the focal point of the longer term vision, I think can be a big hurdle and a stumbling block for a lot of people that are going through that business growth and family growth. Yeah.
What's interesting too, when you said that, it brought to mind of, like, I'm sure you probably do this too, is like, when you're careful on what you take home with you work wise, right? And sometimes, and I tell Cassie, my wife, this too, is like I don't let the highs be too high and the lows too low. And you need to kind of like study that a bit. Earlier in my career and earlier in my marriage, I think I didn't. And it was just, I don't know, too much of an emotional roller coaster that wasn't necessary to bring home to my spouse and then to the kids. And so, but sometimes, especially, like, you want to vent and even like get really excited and like, and not to say I don't do that at times, but it's a lot more controlled. And another separate thing just on that note too, is like, I always, probably addicted to checking emails, right? And like, when you check those emails outside of, the workday, you don't know if it's going to be a good or bad email. And so like, I tell myself, like, all right, if you're checking an email after work hours and you're at home, just be prepared, because I got that. I remember early in my career, my biggest client at the time sent me an email, and I was on a date with Cassie, and I read it, and he basically said, I'm going elsewhere. And that absolutely crushed me. And it was just, I didn't need to read that.
That's some wisdom right there.
Yeah.
Pay attention to that, because I've been in very similar situations, but you forget that there's on and off hours when you're.
Yeah, I can do a better job of that. That's for sure.
But early on, when you're trying to create something that's going to survive as a business, like
consumes you,
like that business is going to pay for that meal you were at, right?
Seriously.
But also that dopamine feedback loop. It's almost like, I've never thought about it this way, but it's almost like you're playing the slots. You don't really know if it's going to be good or bad. Like, hopefully it's good, but every gambling addict thinks that, right?
Well said. That's well said.
But that type of, like, with gambling, you can't really build structures and things that are going to take away the risk. But in business, we try to build all this infrastructure and processes to minimize that, so that you're not gambling, but it's a strategic decision.
Right, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly what you do from a big money standpoint. How many spreadsheets do you have open at a given time? I'm just thinking,
I love spreadsheets. And wealth, kind of talked earlier, like just dollars. Like that's an easy way to explain the work that we do. If there's a dollar sign, okay, we do strategic planning around and analysis around that. From the asset to the debt, to the real estate, to whatever it might be, to the income tax, like that's something that we have to understand. And so, yeah, we love nerding out on spreadsheets. We do a lot in our planning software, and, which as a business owner, it's hard to envision, in my experience and my client's experience, like you can probably go 10 years out, and like a lot of our, the operating models, EOS and whatnot, like they have a 10-year mark, and that's how we do it. We just say, look 10 years out. It's really hard to look further than 10 years. And I think when you go to more of a traditional financial planner advisor, they might say, okay, we're going to retire in 25, 30 years or whatever it might be. The business, okay, I think I can picture what it looks like 10 years out. But beyond that is so hard. And the beauty of what I think the work that we do, just like any good business owner will pivot when they need to, is we can pivot and the plan is fluid, right? And so like the 10-year, the 3-year, that might look different every year, but that's okay, right? Like our businesses, aren't going to go on this trajectory that we think is just going to be routine. And so, and it just kind of makes the work that we do even more fun. Is just like, I know you have done such a good job investing in your business, but even like new product lines and all that stuff are like, wow, we never talked about that a year ago type of thing. Exactly. Well, yeah, I know. So what am I saying there? I think that it's hard for a business owner in the business to look further than 10 years out. And I think it's very okay on the financial planning side to know, like, we're going to create a plan now, but also be very open and okay that this plan could look very different 6 months later, a year later. And I think that might even like reduce some anxiety around finances and stuff like that too, knowing that like, all right, we reserve the right to change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, paying attention to all the different economic factors that play into that, let alone the health of the business and what's going on there, the emotional separation and having somebody help you with that higher level, especially when you get multiple tax returns and all these different things, like, I don't understand that crap, but understanding how the money in the business trickles down, but the money in the personal accounts, like there should really be a kind of an aligned thought process there, but it shouldn't just all be one big mixing pot. Yeah. And I know from experience that getting it to not all be mixed together and separate all that stuff out, like, it takes some work, right? Because all the tax deductions and all that, like, it's like, okay, that's great. I'm going to save, like, I don't even know. I don't even know how the math works out. But a lot of business owners make decisions of, oh, you can write that off. You write this off. But there's no strategy there. Yeah.
And usually the common theme, regardless of income, regardless of wealth, you're always solving for cash flow and liquidity. And so I think that's something helpful that we can guide our clients, is understanding, okay, just looking at their cash flow, right? They have an idea of what's going to model out from the business type of thing, but then understanding, okay, what are the business needs, capital needs, and what are the personal needs, right? Just having them talk through that. And then from there, it's like problem solving. Okay, well then how do we invest these dollars that are going to be needed in the short term, and have these dollars that we might need, in a couple of years type of thing. And these, like, we hope that we never have to touch these dollars type of thing. In a nutshell, that's kind of what we're doing. Now, within that we solve the cash flow and then the liquidity, like, meaning we potentially may need to access these funds. Then you kind of solve for tax minimization. And tax minimization isn't always, pay the least amount of taxes in that tax year. You have to look at it long term. How can we pay them in, right? Where I think as business owners and the real estate, like, no, let's write it all off and take the full deduction, or let's do this and show no income. Okay, that might make sense in certain places, but other times, like, if we have a tax problem done right, like, that could be a good problem, right? We just want to make sure we're optimizing as much as possible. And so like in anything, like if you grow a business, now there's more income. If you grow an investment, okay, now there's potentially capital gains type of thing. Like in that way, tax it, like if we have a tax problem, like that's a good thing. But there are ways that we can minimize those taxes. And where we fund those dollars from retirement accounts to tax-free accounts to taxable accounts to whatnot is the role that we play. But then also understanding like what I always call kind of like those oh shit moments of like, hey, we want to put these dollars away long term, but as the business owners, you kind of say like, but if I needed to go here and grab those, could I? Well, yeah, right. So making sure that you solve for liquidity as well. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's complex, you know, it's just, money touches a lot of different things. You know, we talked about the emotional side, but then also, you know, you get into taxes. How should you invest it? What about excess cash? What are you doing with that? To, okay, now estate planning. Should we get a trust and will? And now we might have an estate tax because we're over in a certain threshold that we never, you know, dreamed of, like type of thing. Like, and what type of insurance do we even need type of thing? That's the role that we play, because as a professional service, you know, like we know that our clients, when they hire us, they want to free up more time because they want to spend more time in the business and or more time with their family or doing what they love. Piece of thing. And so like that they get to a point where like you take care of it. Right. And so I mean, that's why we're called eWealth partners. We feel like we're like a partner with them on optimizing all of it. So it's a really rewarding work that we do, quite honestly.
So what are some of like the blocking and tackling type of things that your team like typically deploys once you're bringing somebody?
Yeah. So good question. I'm going to go back to like, first we do a simple exercise, a visioning exercise. That's really fun. Just like I said, tell, you know, the spouse is like, tell me what life looks like 10 years out, 3 years out, 12 months out. What does that look like ideally? Because now what we're understanding is what do we have to solve for, like almost like liquidity wise, right? Then from there, it's a matter of like, okay, how much should we have in cash accounts and what's the excess? Do we have any excess? Where should we put those dollars? Now we got to put those dollars, in this case, your higher income, we want to fill up all the tax deferred 401ks and whatnot. Okay, we actually had a bad business year. This might be a great year to use after-tax Roth dollars, or maybe even realize capital gains on investments or even real estate type of thing. And so, you know, to simplify it, again, it's going to come down to cash flow. And then with that liquidity of where can we put those dollars to work, oftentimes with the benefit of tax minimization. Okay. And that might be helping in open it up. Maybe they don't have a retirement account for the business, right? Or maybe if they do, maybe it should be designed a little bit differently so they get more bang for their buck. Or maybe now we start getting into conversations of like, you know, do we want to start thinking of like kids' education funding? There's different ways to do that. Doesn't always make sense to open up a college savings plan. We could just do it through, you know, like a taxable brokerage account. And so the blocking and tackling is, again, solving for liquidity and cash flow. And then from there saying, okay, we're now that we have these excess dollars, where do we put them? And then, and then how should they be invested? Into the stock market, into real estate, or better yet, as I say, the best investment is the right reinvestment into your own business, right? We were talking in an earlier conversation about the way kind of private equity thinks in some ways, like where they put fuel on the fire. Like if we feel good about something that we're doing and we've seen growth, you know, we want to make sure, again, we'll go back to on the personal side, that we protect that short-term piece of it and the liquidity, but let's reinvest into that business. That is going to grow at a much higher rate than the stock market will. Right. And so it's bogus.
Especially if you do it right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So like we champion like them as the business owner. And yes, we help with the investment and all that piece of it. But done right is you're right. The right reinvestments into your own business.
So how do you know if you're doing that, if it's the right one?
Yeah, I have a ton of interest in that, but I don't pretend like I'm a business coach consultant, right?
You
And
know
so,
where to draw the line.
yeah, I know where to draw. I mean, just the serial entrepreneur in me, like,
Yeah.
and how to scale and all that
Mhm.
stuff. Like, I'm interested in it, but I don't, knowing that all businesses are different. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to come in like, oh, look at this. Here's your sales and your marketing. Like, oh,
Yeah.
your ops. Like, no, like you got to hire someone
Mhm.
in that space, or maybe you even know it. You just got to be more transparent on your own numbers type
Mhm.
of thing. And so that's not my role. But I love to hear about like what went right, what went wrong.
For sure.
Just for my
So
own
how
good.
do you work through that conversation or that thought process around, I'm going to take what we made last year and reinvest it into the future of the business
Mhm.
versus all the other options
Yeah.
that are there, especially with as many different businesses that are out there, and
Yeah.
how much there is to learn. Like, you can only really go so deep. So
Yeah.
are you looking at tax returns and stuff
Yeah.
like that, or like,
Yeah, you look at tax returns. You look at basically everything. Usually, when they come to us, the business owner entrepreneur knows where they want to put their money in the business type of thing, right?
Mhm.
Like, not to say that we can help with that. They might say, "Hey, I don't know where right now to reinvest in this business, that business, or whatever it might be, but like I just need a place for the next 6 months, or maybe maybe we'll never have to touch it because we're cash flowing okay. But who knows? We might need it in 3 years.
Mhm.
So then you kind of design in that way of like, okay, we're not taking as much risk compared to our 10-year plus type of investment piece of it. But they usually will come to me and be like, hey, yeah, no, it's been a good year, but like we're gonna double down on the business. And again, I'm gonna go back to what I keep saying is like, but we also need to make sure that we're addressing those short-term concerns either by the business owner or even by the spouse, right?
So what about that same type of trade-off for businesses that are in that first 3 to 5 year stage where they're trying, like, maybe they get some cash coming in, they
Yeah.
start making money.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of guys just dump everything back into the business and not think about
Yeah.
any of those other options at
Yeah.
all. Is it one of those things where you can get off in a ditch on the road on either side type of things, or?
This is me talking from my own experience. I mean, I cashed out my retirement accounts to fund my business in those
You
early
just
years.
went all in?
I mean, I kind of had to. And so I think in those earlier years, you have to take that risk, but you also have to be pretty committed to the goal. I don't know. Maybe that's just more of my style. I'm sure there's something in between, but I think that's where I'm saying, like, in those earlier years of entrepreneurship, business ownership, especially if it's from like kind of ground up or maybe just started, is you tend to neglect a lot of the other personal finance side. But if you're creating the machine that's going to grow the income, that's probably the best investment. Right. And sometimes I tell people, like, it might be through further education. If that is like, even if you're not a business owner, that if you went and you got an MBA because you have to in the corporate world to get to this position, yes, it's expensive, but does that allow for you to generate more income? Okay, that it's an investment in yourself type of thing. I'm not saying that we always need to have that education, but in the corporate world, you might see that more on that side of it. So you kind of just have to go all in, which is scary. And that's, I think the statistics around like most businesses fail. Like,
Well, and are there any statistics out there about businesses that were operating and then the operator got married?
oh, that'd be
And what
interesting.
happened after? Because, like, I mean, maybe a little bit of what attracted that person to you was the fact that you had a successful business or something, and now that plays out further, and now all of a sudden your life is revolving around them.
Yeah. I'm sure there's something out there. As we were talking about in a similar vein of like, I started the business before dating my now wife, Cassie, and she was a registered nurse, but it felt really nice to have more secure income and benefits from her side, and it probably allowed for me to take even more risk and and to reinvest more into the business. Right. And so I think just having that more secure income on that piece of it, like that's where it really, I would say, enhanced our financial situation. Is we were quite dependent on her income for those whatever first 3 years or so in marriage.
So what? I got a few buddies that are getting married and they're operating businesses. And I haven't thought about this until right now, but what type of conversations should they be having with their better half in front of the conversation coming up later down the line? Like, how do they get that type of alignment? Because that support is critical when we got to do all this entrepreneur stuff. Yeah. If you're coming home and mama's not happy, like, it becomes a lot harder.
Well, that, and like, again, we go back to the more emotional side of it too, is like the good and bad of being a business owner, entrepreneur is your schedule, your calendar can be a bit more flexible, but also like it can overlap and you might be working into the weekends and nights and stuff where like, and if the spouse that, or, going into marriage, they haven't experienced that and they're, more of just the 8 to 5, like, I don't know. That's probably one different thing is like, yes, we are probably doing a better job turning that off, but just like knowing like you can't really turn that, even just the way we think. And that, like, it seems like it's our hobby when we build our businesses, like for fun on vacation. I think about the business all the time, but it doesn't stress me out. I love all that. And so like, that would be one thing of just like, beware of this. Like,
is there something wrong with us?
Yeah, exactly. Like just know that piece of it. And then probably understanding the financial complexity piece of it. And I think it would be maybe just healthy to understand like, we have options. If we have excess income, we could either just consume on ourselves and, some are necessary, maybe some are just like lifestyle stuff, but also know like if we can have this standard of living that is, solid, but like this gives us more opportunity to reinvest elsewhere. And oftentimes that being the business, like then to paint that picture to say, if done right, again, like this should generate more income. It should create this machine. And now this business is going to have much more value, right? And so can you, get on board with me to understand like this is the philosophy of how we're going to do it? That would probably be the way that I would just talk through it, of just like, you're kind of come into a relationship where I need you to be my number one fan and what we're doing. And Cassie has, which makes me get stoked up. Like, but I think that piece of it is really, really huge. To have like, like you could do this. I believe in you. So probably a conversation around that. Got me teared up.
No, but I mean, when I think about it for myself, like I was involved with business early on, but when I got married to my wife, Monica, and then now all of a sudden, like she's counting on me to like, not take care of her, but be the provider. Right. Yeah. Like I want to be the one carrying kind of the brunt of it, like totally different type of focus for what I was doing, how I was spending my time. Maybe we should have had some of those conversations you just talked about, but there's so much unknown in business ownership and growth that sometimes it's hard to really, as a young person especially, articulate that to somebody for what they're signing up for. Right. Like Monica did not sign up for all the stuff that we've gone through, but like you said, she is like my number one fan and like my rock, and that seriously for me is critical. Like,
I totally agree.
So I don't remember where I was going with that, but those type of conversations ahead of time and really trying to get on the same page financially. It takes time. And sometimes there's a knowledge gap or a topic that has to be discussed further, but like getting through that and getting on the same page so that there's clarity on both sides. Especially when you're building a family, like
there's a lot of weight on your shoulders too. And that's kind of how I want it, of like, all right, it's all for the family. So like, you're doing it for a reason. Again, I think most of us business owner entrepreneurs like want that weight, right? Because it is a pretty big weight, but like
kind of thrive on it.
Right,
sometimes,
exactly.
yeah.
And like, cause you want to do that for your spouse and your kids, and you want a better life, and not to say money solves all of that, but it helps with a lot of it.
Yeah,
right.
It sure
and
does.
So like, I don't know, that's kind of the fun piece of it, kind of connecting the business with how which we all do when we work, we're supporting ourselves and we're supporting our family. And so, and that's actually the beauty of being an entrepreneur, is your income isn't capped. Or if you go into right, like, and so that has given me more freedom, even as we've grown our family, of like, yeah, another kid, I'll just go make more money. Yeah. In all seriousness, like it's just like it's kind of freeing in that sense. Where if you're on the corporate side and you're in this type of job, and here's the amount of income type of thing, and like,
oh man. Talk about a boxed in scenario. Yeah, I like my no ceiling scenario a little better. It does it's like a superpower almost for some of those like human problems that people just come across. Like that ability to think that. How much of the population just doesn't have it? They haven't built that muscle. They haven't had to take all the risks, experience all the failure, because they're scared. But that's like so much fun once you do it, because you can look back at the things you've accomplished and the people you've impacted over time. I think entrepreneurship is just something everybody should do, because it forces you to become a better person.
It's freeing too. It's hard.
It's freeing, but it's also a leash at the same time. It's like this catch-22.
That's true. That's well said. That's true. It's freeing in the sense that you can pick your own adventure in a way, right? And so like you get to choose, and so that's what's freeing, and that's what I love about it, is like it's up to me, and I'm responsible if I F it up.
And you're in a business where you help people take the time to zoom out and think about some of that. But you do get to build that future if you think about it that way, so that you can work towards it. When we're just running through stuff and solving problems and so in the business, you can be sprinting full speed ahead for a few years and end up in a direction that's not really where you want it to go. So that actually thinking, where do I want to be? If you got kids, if your kid's 8 years old, what do I want my day to look like when he's 13?
Yeah.
Right. Like that type of stuff.
That's reality, for both of us right now, because your time looks different when you have kids, when you have young kids. And I think that's actually a benefit of having kids, as we talked previously, like, when I was single or married with no kids, or maybe one kid, like it was easier for me to work 50, 60, whatever, 70 hours a week. Yeah. Again, I didn't get stressed. I kind of enjoyed it. Right. But when you have more responsibilities at home and kids and whatever that might be, athletics or whatever, and now you have to be home at a certain time, like where I was working, whatever, 50, 60 hours, it might be closer to 40 now, because I've committed to coaching my kids and stuff like that. And I have to be home. And so therefore you don't have those extra 20 hours. So then you are more strategic and almost forced to like, all right, what do I hire? What do I offload? Right.
Well, the extra hours sometimes can allow for inefficiency and work just for the sake of work, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's like a point where the inputs don't necessarily correlate with the outputs, and you should stop around.
Yes.
But I'm guilty of it myself. Like when you're focused on an idea, or you're working on a project, or you got a proposal, like all that other stuff kind of gets forgotten. So like drawing that line in the sand of, hey, at 5 o'clock, like done.
Right.
And then holding yourself accountable to that. Right. It's hard.
It's hard. But then you force yourself to just do the things that you are truly best at. Right. And then hopefully you're outsourcing, hiring or whatever on that other side. And that's going to scale the business, grow the business more.
For me, it was like, it was a sprint to get in front of work preventing me from being able to coach my kids' baseball team.
Sure.
And do those things. So like I knew I wanted to be an involved parent,
Mhm.
and I could feel every day how much time was just going into the business, right? So that creating of a business that isn't just me and a couple other people, and all the decisions have to run through me. Like I had to drop my ego and start to really develop my people skills and leadership development and work on myself, like tons of hours on myself. And that's really where you got to start, is yourself, your relationship with your spouse,
Absolutely,
and thinking about the future. But you hit on it earlier, like having time to think.
Yeah.
I remember in business a moment after we had built some leadership and some infrastructure where I finally felt like this, like room to think. And it was a type of peace that I hadn't had for years, because I was just running on adrenaline and dopamine hits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's again kind of like the fun exercise. I'll bring it back to like what I love, the annual, when we set like really like, hey, let's talk about the future. What does the future of the business look like? You have to carve out some time of like thinking like, what does that look like, right? And you should also do that on the family side of what does that look like ideally. And really, and that's what I say is the cool thing about the work that we do, is sometimes those conversations are happening on the spot right in front of us. And it'd be like, hey, I never told you this, sweetie, but like this was something that, you know, I'm interested in, or where I think, you know, maybe we'd be living, or, you know, all these different things come out of like actually being intentional about just what does life look like, and then doing that, you know, and the business owner in explaining or crafting that vision with your team and your employees, and then doing the same thing with your spouse, and then when, you know, the kids too, right? Like to kind of say like, hey, this is what.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really fun exercise, right? With the right, again, that we can always pivot when it makes sense to pivot, for better or worse.
So you're just talking about the future of the business with your children.
Yeah.
Tell me how you would advise somebody with that, and especially like young children. Like they don't know what the hell dad's doing.
No.
They just love him, and sometimes see him on his phone.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah, so our oldest is 10, and we haven't gotten into the conversations like of, they know that I'm one of the owners, you know, of the founder and owner of eWealth Partner. They know that I'm the owner, right? And they know that that's different than a lot of the other, you know, couples that, you know, that we're with, that they're typically on the employee side. And so I think, how would I explain that to young kids? I think what you want to just talk them through is, I remember back when I was young that you almost had to be like superhuman to start your own business. Or when you thought it was like you starting a business, you are creating Microsoft or something that's so far developed, where it's like, it starts from the littlest thing, right? And so like teaching from the lemonade stand to, okay, now you're going to go to the neighbors and wash windows type of things, of like, understand like, yeah, this is you're a business owner, and this can evolve, and it's not as hard as we think, right? Like, I think the safe thing is go get that job, right? And, you know, I'm just talking out loud now, but like, yeah, we probably should have pushed our kids probably earlier in those teenage years of like, just go mow lawns, or go door knock and seeing if you can, whatever it might be, experience that. And like, you are fully responsible for the outcome, or for your income outcome. That might give them a better taste of like being open to running a business. But it's also something like at home, like I think it's great responsibility to talk about your employees and your team, and like how much you care for them too, because they are like the extended family piece of it. And so I think that's cool to see as well, to talk about them, because it's your family at work.
Well, and kids pay attention to everything. Sometimes they don't listen, but they're watching everything.
Oh, yeah.
And oftentimes they're like a mirror kind of
Mm-hmm.
like reflecting back, like
Mhm.
there's a lot of wisdom in listening to your kids and what they say. And we've talked about this on here before, but if you got a family and you got a business, like there's got to be balance and clarity there. Otherwise, like it can become just a tough existence.
Absolutely.
Emotionally and financially on both sides.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't do everything I'm doing with the business if it wasn't for the family that we're building. Like there's time and effort and energy, right? But like this one seems to be fuel for the fire for me, at least. But is it the same for you?
Yeah, I would say it is, because I know, I don't know why this comes to mind, but like we're more in a spot now to like to control the inputs type of thing. And so like you can control your schedule, you control like, you know, you said like, yeah, maybe it's working those additional hours isn't always best for the business and it isn't always best for the family too. Right. And so like, I think yes, fuel for the fire is like, okay, we can still do like great things with the business and still be a great spouse, be a great dad. Cause in my childhood, I didn't have, at the time, my parents weren't business owners. My dad got it actually when I was in college, but like they had more the 8 to 5. And I always appreciated that they were at like basically every sports thing, right? They didn't miss anything. That was really cool. And so now I think like, just what am I saying here? That we can control, and sometimes business, we can't make our kids every single practice or game type of thing, but like you have more control than I think if you're not a business owner or entrepreneur. You get to make the choices, and that's kind of the beauty of it.
But you have to make them before a customer calls and schedules something that gets in the way of that. And like the prioritizing of that.
Right.
It takes like a level of foresight to be able to either see like the negative impact and not wanting to go that way, or like being around a father that was there and having parents that were there. So wanting to build something similar to that. That was the same for my parents. Like we played a lot of sports. But them being there, like I always found them in the stands. Always. And maybe it's, just thinking out loud here is like when we can't, again, this isn't your business owner or not, but like to have them understand why they can't make it. Sometimes these are necessary for the good of the family to go on this work trip or do that stuff. For sure.
It's like, hey, and maybe sitting down with your child and just saying like, I know this sucks that I'm not going to be here for this and that and this, but here's the reason why we're doing this and we're committed, and why I think this is important or necessary. Like those are probably pretty healthy conversations too. It's probably a reality check too, is like, if you can't explain it to your child in a way that makes sense, like maybe you shouldn't be doing it.
That's a really good point. But also like life's about disappointments. Like they come up every single day, and I've had to, I try to make every single one, but I've missed a couple because like you said, sometimes when we're building this thing for our family, like there's trade-offs, right? So making a decision of I want to make everyone and then never pivoting from that, like that can instantly impact the trajectory of a business. So I think just the fluidity that entrepreneurship does allow for a growing family though is pretty cool if there's intent behind decisions around time and finances. And sometimes it happens really fast, but zooming out, having some type of practice relationship with some experts that can help you know what some of the questions to ask yourself are to help identify the right choices. Then you have choices. If you don't know what they all are, you don't really have choices. You just go with that, whatever your accountant tells you. And he's not supposed to be.
No,
he's not really the best guy to be given that advice, right? Like he understands it, but mitigating tax, to your point earlier, that's not the only game here.
No, like, and just as you were saying that, I was thinking like too, like, yes, that's on the professional, on the wealth side, but like we have, from our, outside of work, maybe the mentors in our life, right? Or even like on the spiritual, religious side, like of it type of thing. Like in the same vein, like when you work with someone, drawing this connection, like you want to, one, just trust them, two, and believe that they have your best interests in all kind of areas in life. And that's really what we're responsible for on that side of it. I mean, it sounds silly, but like what we do as advisors, like you just put yourself in their shoes. Pretend like it's your situation in your, it's not your money, but like, that's how you think through it. What would you do? What would you do is best? And you just, and like, so that's
the best way to think through it. I think some people think that the person in your shoes is looking, how do I get the most commission?
Yeah. And they think it's their money. It's not, it's not our money. It's our client's money. Right. Like, and how do we help them with that? Right. It's so, that is something interesting that we always just say at our office. Like, well, sometimes we don't always agree with their decisions, quite honestly, but it's their money.
It's true. Well, and that, like the risk and all that goes into it, you got to make decisions and then live with the consequences one way or the other.
Yeah.
And sometimes they might be right. Sometimes they might be wrong, but having unbiased, non-emotional, expert level opinion as a business owner, like you got to have somebody there. If you're just firing stuff into a 401k or whatever.
Yeah. You want to get sound advice in all areas of life, right?
Well, I appreciate you coming on here today. We're coming to time here, Brian. We covered a lot.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value that our listeners can get from this. I'm going to ask you one more question.
Sure.
What's hustle mean to you when it comes to business? I mean, you see business owners all the time. I'm like, hustle's walking through your door every single day. But what's it mean to you?
Yeah. I think I would say grind. If I'm hustling, I'm grinding, right? And I'm grinding because like I'm working hard because I believe in that end goal, right? Again, coming from athletics, piece like you're hustling, you're grinding, like you're like, all right, I'm putting in the hard work because it's building the muscles, building something that should help me compete stronger, right? And so like that's when I hear also like, all right, that means like you're working, you're grinding, and like you believe in what that outcome can be.
Mic drop. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks again for tuning into the Homegrown Hustle. Brian, I wish you the best of luck with number 7. Can't wait to see who wins the tiebreaker here. Thanks for all the support. If you got some value out of this or you want to get in touch with Brian, reach out to him, get some time scheduled with his team. They run a great operation over there. So if you're in the Minnetonka or the surrounding area, just head right into the office. There might be an online booking form or something.
We can do it all.
We're going to wrap up. Till next time, keep hustling.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Homegrown Hustle. It's been an honor to share the stories of local legends who make our community thrive. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Please stay tuned for more insight and inspiration. We got a lot of heat in the chamber. This is Matthew Eickman saying peace out until next time. Get hustling.